This episode is made possible by NetSuite by Oracle and Brex, the AI-powered spend platform.
Hi, this is Joel Campbell, CFO of TreviPay, and you're listening to the CFO Thought Leader Podcast.
This is episode 1006.
What's our plan as a startup to achieve profitability in the medium to long term? That's also something that I am constantly thinking about, how we can be more efficient, how we can drive revenue and gain scale so we can be profitable. As a CFO, you are a leader. Sometimes you are just isolated. So I constantly have one-on-ones with different people across the organization, from product and engineering or operations, so I can listen to them, motivate them, and also just be available and be an open door, having an open door approach. I think that's very important.
Hi, it's Jack. On today's episode, we speak with Jorge Stevenson, CFO of Yuvo Health. CFO Jorge Stevenson grew up in Santiago, Chile, where his two business leader parents taught him to keep the bottom line top of mind, a mindset that led him to enroll in business school at Duke, where he graduated and soon landed on the CFO path here in the States. You'll hear that story and much more on today's episode. We'll begin after this. $37,025.1. These are the three numbers to remember to get the visibility and control you need to make the right business decisions instantly. 37,000. That's the number of businesses which have upgraded to NetSuite by Oracle. NetSuite is the #1 cloud financial system, streamlining accounting, financial management, inventory, HR, and more. 25. NetSuite turns 25 this year. That's 25 years of helping businesses do more with less, close their books in days, not weeks, and drive down expenses. 1. Because your business is one of a kind, you should get a customized solution for all of your KPIs in one efficient system and with one source of truth. Manage risk, get reliable forecasts, and improve margins. Everything you need, all in one place. Right now, download NetSuite's popular KPI checklist designed to give you consistently excellent performance, absolutely free, at netsuite.com/KPI. That's netsuite.com/KPI. Hello, we're speaking with Jorge Stevenson, CFO of Yuvo Health. Jorge, welcome.
Nice to be here and finally meet you.
Yes, likewise, Jorge. We'd love to have you go back in time for us. Yours is another globetrotting story, I believe, but let's find out. Fill us in a little bit about your past and some of those experiences you feel prepared you to become a CFO.
Absolutely. Great question. So throughout my career journey, there are three experiences that I would highlight that actually prepared me to be a CFO ultimately. First, my decision to pursue an MBA, a Master's in Business Administration at Duke University. I think that was pivotal in honing my finance and strategy acumen. And we can go into more details, but then the second one that I think it was very relevant for me, it was my tenure at Bestow, which is a tech startup. That was my prior job. My experience at Prudential, that we can talk about it a little bit later, and also on a stint at Goldman Sachs, where all of these experiences offer me invaluable exposure to mergers and acquisitions, financial planning and analysis, overall strategic thinking, and even board level responsibilities within joint ventures. And then the third one, as a summary for you, my engagement in extracurricular activities has been instrumental in my professional development.
But can you take us back to chapter one, where the first time you stepped into a professional environment? Where were you?
Sure. Well, I am originally from Santiago, Chile, where I was born and raised, with the influence of my parents, who are both or were CEOs. My father now is retired. My mom is still working, actually, but yeah, large corporations. They were always bringing different topics to the table in terms of what's happening in the economy, what's happening with their businesses in general, and I think I was absorbing all those elements, and those things were ingrained in myself and actually captured my attention since I was little. And that shaped probably my character as well in terms of how I think about business, finance in general. Although my father is more like a businessman, and my mom as well, but they both of them, they always told me that finance is so critical for the success of a business that you should really pay attention to it. Some business leaders actually don't take that much credit to finance, but finance can be very strategic, and that's why I'm also in this podcast, because I think the way you are trying to articulate the role of a CFO is very strategic in nature.
Now, as we look to determine where your professional life began, Santiago, you were working for Microsoft,
Yes.
as well as Principal. Is that right?
Right on spot. So first, actually, let me surprise you a little bit, because that's what appears in my CV and what we have discussed before, and you can go into my LinkedIn profile as well. But my first job after college was actually a door-to-door sales representative in Australia, for a period of time, let's say almost a little bit less than a year. And why I did that? Because it was the only opportunity in my life that I saw right out of college to say, you know what, go out there, work and travel. And Australia gave that visa to Chileans, to the opportunity to work and travel for a year. So that experience really was something that gave me.
What exactly were you selling?
I was selling electricity contracts in Australia. The electricity is deregulated, if you will, and you can sell electricity and compete. It's different from the US, right? So that was something that I was doing door to door. So imagine right now, when somebody knocks on your door, Jack, tries to sell you something. That was me, and I really have an appreciation now of sales. It's
Wow.
really
Okay. Well, that was an interesting first step into the professional world. Then you return back to Chile, and
yes.
you get a role at Microsoft.
Exactly. And actually, if you think about it, that experience in sales gave me a great uh, touch point for to leverage for Microsoft in finance. Imagine, people may think you did sales and now you want to transition finance. Like, this guy may be a little bit lost in his career, right? But actually, they appreciated that experience and they thought it was very courageous, and it was great. And I started working at Microsoft as a financial analyst, and then followed a more traditional career in terms of moving into principal, as you said before, in the finance world, and then a small boutique asset manager there in Chile before going to Duke to pursue my MBA.
How do you choose Duke? You're looking from the outside in. It'd be interesting. Was it on a short list, or was it the one?
Yeah, it was a short list initially. Probably you're aware of this, but you usually apply to, let's say, 10 business schools, and but in my experience, I was really I was really tight on time. So I was shortlisted. I was shortlisting three MBA programs, and I applied. My top one was Duke, and I really connected really well with everyone there, the admission team, the dean at the moment, the alumni. And what really resonated on me was the team Fuqua. It's that concept of you work as a team, you collaborate as a team, we figure out things together. No matter what, we will figure it out. And frankly, that was something very simple that you may think about, but Team Fuga is a strong concept there in terms of the business school at Duke.
Interesting. We haven't had that mentioned before, and there have been a few Duke alumni. Strong alumni network as you go forward.
Very strong. I still keep in touch with many of my friends. I actually, it's not necessarily a network; it's just friends, and that's beautiful because sometimes when you have the opportunity to make true friendships that are long lasting, that's something very valuable. And besides just the work related opportunities, it's just nice to see that you have friends that you can count on them for the rest of your life.
When you graduate from Duke, is it still finance? Is that what you're staring out at, or has business become suddenly broader? You could go perhaps a number of paths. Don't know.
Exactly. So the good thing about Duke is that it opened me many opportunities. And before, as I mentioned before, I have done sales, I have done finance, also some sales related opportunities within the boutique asset manager. And overall, I think the opportunity that Duke gave me there was to really focus on what I want to do long term. It provided me with a structured platform to refine my areas of expertise and actually crystallize my professional perspective. Additionally, I was the co-president of the finance club at our business school. I mentored 100 plus students in advancing their careers and underscored my commitment to developing the finance community. So it wasn't just study and then go to find a job. It was actually very, very engaged with the students and the community there.
And this is something that you've carried forward somewhat. You are an adjunct professor still today, is that right? At NYU?
That's right.
Yeah. So there's something about teaching. There's something you enjoy. How am I doing? Is it is that part
Yeah,
of who you are?
it's part of who I am actually, because maybe I forgot to mention this before, but I was also an adjunct professor back in Chile before pursuing my MBA as well. So when I came to the US, I came here. I studied and then I found a job, and I was under a visa called H-1B. Maybe you're familiar with that, which is and it's called like a temporary visa. So you are not able to work in other endeavors outside of the ones that outside of the employer who is sponsoring your visa. But I was always curious to do classes here in English. And once I got my green card, I said, okay, let's start, networking. Let's start again. And New York University, NYU, gave me that fantastic opportunity to be a professor, adjunct professor for strategy and finance classes. I do one-on-one in here in Manhattan, teaching for grad school. So that's great.
Great opportunity. But as you stare at the professional world after Duke, where are you headed? What's your next stop?
Yeah, great. So I had like an internship, a stint at Goldman Sachs in here in New York. Actually, that was a really fun experience, but also at the same time, investment banking, extremely long hours. And I think then afterwards, when I had this opportunity at Prudential, it was a great balance for me because I was working long hours as well, but not as an investment banker, but still mergers and acquisitions, very involved in those type of efforts. But I think the culture at Prudential was really, really good, and it was the right fit for me. They gave me the right opportunities, and I think I capitalized on them.
And again, you were how many years? I mean, you invested a number of years there, close to 6, I think. Is that right?
I close to
Close
five,
to 5.
close to five.
And it looks like the types of roles you were in, there was always sort of a strategy component to it. It doesn't look like you were someone trying to break out of the accounting side. It looks like from the moment you arrived, you were sort of in a more strategic finance role.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. So I was involved in different roles, which is great because Prudential gave me that opportunity. It's called like a CFO role, rotational program initially, and the first team in which I was deployed or assigned to, they wanted to keep me after. So I didn't rotate. I actually stayed there, and it was fantastic because I was able to be involved in mergers and acquisitions in Latin America, divestitures in Europe, and also efforts in Africa. And to your point, that gave me an appreciation of not just doing numbers or crunching numbers or spreadsheets, but actually thinking strategically, because I was sitting in a regional team and how we can expand our footprint or enhance our footprint across the world, the emerging markets region. And that's pretty strategic in nature.
So what are you thinking? As you look forward, are you thinking maybe someday I'd like to get more senior strategy roles? I could potentially be a chief strategy officer, or are you more focused on finance? Is the CFO role really what you're aiming for?
You're asking me the questions that I have been asking myself for a while. And it was a tough decision because there I was a little bit more junior. I was progressing, then I was a director, and mainly finance related items with strategic implications. But then one of my prior bosses gave me a great opportunity to be a vice president of strategy. And I'm very thankful for that because he was like a mentor to me as well. And overall, that that gave me an understanding like, oh, maybe I can pursue a chief strategy role in the future instead of a CFO role. But sometimes things you just need to go with the flow. You can't be so structured always. um, I think in my mind I have always pursued either strategy or finance, and I have been and I have been able to merge both of them. And this strategy role gave me that high level opportunity to analyze the emerging markets at a different perspective, which was very fantastic. And actually, those experiences gave me the foundation for my future roles at Bestow, this tech startup, as strategic finance, as you
Yeah,
mentioned
and
before.
that's interesting. Yeah, and what you're saying is you stepped in to you become the head of strategic finance at a startup, and
Yes.
it was like a role made for you, just given your background to date. Still gave you that sort of gray area between strategy and finance. How am I doing? No, or
That's on spot again because it's mixed. If you think about it, I was not only just focusing on financial modeling or managing the finance team to implement corporate messaging or key performance indicators, but I was actually working on fundraising with the founders, working with the different leaders there from the executive leadership team. And the interesting portion was also I was leading the business operations efforts to implement OKRs, which is objectives and key results, which is actually a very strategic thing in nature. So again, finance and strategy.
it's interesting. I think finance and CFO's involvement with OKRs have allowed them to sort of collaborate at a broader level, has opened doors for them because again, the CEO is often involved with OKRs. It's much broader than just finance.
It's much broader than finance. Exactly. You have to think about it at the company level, at the functional level, and then at the individual level. So everyone is aligned with the final goals at the company level.
Well, I think our listeners are probably already aware that you do step into a CFO role next. And can you tell us something about that? Are you is it a relationship or a recruiter? How do you land? And again, it's at Yuvo Health. But before we ask you about Yuvo Health, how do you land there? How does that door swing open?
Oh yeah, it was just a recruiter, wonderful recruiter. She did a great job. I think when she approached me via LinkedIn, actually, the way she articulated, the way she actually did her research about me, it was really impressive. And I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to listen to this person. And one thing took to another, and I was actually happy at Bestow. I was doing well at Bestow, and but CFO role, you cannot say just no. I just need to listen, and and she did a great job. And here I am right now at Yuvo Health, as you said, and this is something that actually makes sense to me.
Well, we might have a few more career related questions for you a little later, but right now, let's find out about Yuvo and this opportunity you said yes to. It wasn't that long ago. You joined last fall, but you stepped into the office last fall. But tell us about Yuvo Health. What is this company about?
Yeah, absolutely. Yuvo Health is a healthcare organization that helps community health centers gain an advantage in value-based care. Let me explain very briefly, because I know that this is not a healthcare podcast, but at a high level, what is value-based care? So it's a healthcare model that prioritizes outcomes of care over the quantity of services delivered. And the community health centers provide care to underserved communities who are typically blocked from succeeding in value-based care for different reasons. So Yuvo Health actually helps to clear those obstacles, and we try to be as best as possible in what we do. And to your point, I joined 6 months ago, and I have been really impressed by how everyone is committed to the mission of the company.
Tell us something about, for those of us who are not familiar with the healthcare landscape, community health centers. How many of them populate the U.S.? Are they everywhere?
Yeah, they are everywhere. They are really focused on these underserved communities, and they do a great job. I think the many of the Yuvo Health members, or not members but team members, they actually have had experiences in are deeply connected to community health centers, because they have either been patients of community health centers. So that tells you how broad they are in terms of population, but also they have had professional experiences within the worlds of community health centers or value-based care. So ultimately, Yuvo, for example, is a startup that is remote first. Although our headquarters are in Manhattan, we have people all over the US, and many of those people have had experiences or have been patients of community health centers.
Now, just to clarify, is this a software application for healthcare community centers, or how would you describe it?
Yuvo Health is tech enabled, but we are not a SaaS solution. We partner, I would say we're partners with FQHCs, federally qualified health centers or community health centers, to help them succeed in their value-based care journey. And that's why Lisa told me to be careful, because this is very technical in nature. Um, Basically, Jack, value-based care is like is given the opportunity to access contracts and, let's say, take on risk. So community health centers cannot take risks by regulation. So here the important thing is that we do that on behalf of them, and we have an agreement with the community health centers and the health plans, and we work there, and we are tech enabled, so we can help them take advantage of value-based care. So we help them across that journey.
Now, are you expanding by geography? Are you on the East Coast right now, and the plan is to expand into other markets, or can you give us a sense of the footprint?
Sure, in the Northeast and in the Midwest as well. And then we have plans. We have plans to continue expanding in the next few years. But now one of the priorities is to also go deeper in the current markets and expand there as well.
Now, is there can you share with us the capital structure? Is there a group of investors behind this?
Yeah, so Yuvo Health is a Series A company. It's mainly backed by venture capital, and right now we have been very successful in growing our cap table, our capitalization table, and actually in the last few years, if you think about how we have been growing, we had like a pre-seed round around in 2021. Then there was a seed round in 2022. Then there was a Series A round in 2023. Because we have been growing so fast that we have been consistently, adding capital to our cap table, or adding capital to our balance sheet, if you will. And then now in the next year or so, we're thinking about the next step, right? When it will be the ideal moment to think about Series B or other structures.
So, what does this workforce, the different types of professionals who make up the Yuvo Health workforce today, what does that look like? There's obviously some tech expertise, but there are also perhaps some healthcare minded representatives as well. I mean, what are their backgrounds? Who are these professionals?
Yeah, absolutely. You have people that have been working in the healthcare space most of their lives. I mean, actually, I am the one that didn't have healthcare background, and I'm one of the few. So, and they brought me with a reason because it's good to also have different perspectives. Healthcare, the healthcare environment has a specific way of working, and I can also bring new perspectives, new energy, new blood to this company. So, but most of the company employees have somehow 100% healthcare experience, or at least related to healthcare. So that's one important thing. The other thing is we do have a strong tech team, to your point, where because we are tech enabled, and that's a very important part of us, and also a population health type of team where they collaborate closely with the community health centers, and a performance team and networks team that actually helps to drive performance in the community health centers as well.
So, and again, it was 6 months ago that you stepped into the office. Can you tell us, is there perhaps a metric or a number or a set of numbers that you have sort of raised the profile of already across the organization, or let people know, we need to keep this number top of mind as we go forward? Is there any, you know, any edicts that you've put forth regarding a metric or a number?
Maybe this is going to be too basic and obvious for all the CFOs and people that are listening, but to me, still cash is king. It's still extending cash runway. That's for me the key metric right now. Of course, there are different KPIs and how we can get there. From a revenue expenses perspectives, how do we manage our balance sheet overall, debt versus equity, but cash. I need to extend cash as much as possible, um, making sure that we have streamlined financial processes and also revenue generation, as well as being very optimal in terms of how we deal with our expenses and costs. So to me, that's the number
Yeah.
one.
Did you have all the visibility into that cash that you needed? Was there anything you did to help you understand more hourly rather than daily, or whatever it might have been, where the cash balances are?
Yeah, that's a great question. I was the first CFO of the company, like the first formal CFO. There was the chief of staff who was doing the like multiple things. One of the things were also finance related. He did a great job. Honestly, he was multitasking, but he did a great job. But I was the first formal one. So to your point, I was putting in place best practices and different procedures so I can have a better understanding of cash. And I actually had the visibility because I had the access to the bank account, but I cannot be every single day trying to access manually the bank account. So I did one of the good things that actually gave me peace of mind initially was to bring on board one person who was taking care of the accounting, and that was part also of this, gave me more visibility in terms of how we're dealing with cash, how we can be more thoughtful about it. And because before we had another vendor and it didn't work out well for me, I wasn't very comfortable, but this new person, I trusted her, and she's doing a phenomenal job, and that now I have the visibility that I need to.
We're up to what we like to refer to as our finance strategic moment question. This might have happened anytime during the course of your career, but it's where you had a moment of insight. Your lines of sight allowed you to see something, whether it was an opportunity or a risk. Anything come to mind when we ask for a finance strategic moment?
Yes. When I was at Prudential, for me, Prudential was very important because it was my first, let's say, long-term job out of Duke and in the US, because I had, the experience at Goldman, which was great. But this was more long term, and I was really succeeding and being more comfortable also leading different teams and engaging, etc. And they gave me also a lot of opportunities. So the strategic moment came for me when I was doing mergers and I was working in mergers and acquisitions. And some people say like M&A, it's fancy, people sometimes think about M&A as something very, very fancy or cool. It's actually very difficult. It's actually you had to roll up your sleeves, get dirty, do the due diligence for months, work until late, every single day, even weekends. And that was the time that I was thinking, okay, you know what? I should start thinking about this more strategically and take advantage of the skill set that I'm gaining right now. And because sometimes you are so buried in the crunching numbers and just working hard, and you just get the job done. But I was able to, and actually I discussed this with my wife at that point, and I was like, okay, what things can I do so I can deliberately be more strategic about all this? And I asked for the opportunity to not just be doing the due diligence and crunching numbers, but actually to understand the strategy of why we're doing this. And to me, that was a change of mindset, because if you think about sometimes, especially in investment banking, or when you are just so much in the transaction, you are very focused on just the model, the transaction, due diligence, NDAs, let's close the deal, that's it. Here I was also part of the origination, in terms of, okay, where do we want to expand? Let's think about the countries in Latin America. Where can I think about the best opportunities that we can actually go there and grow? So, for example, as a quick example, I I have the opportunity to grow our market presence in Latin America, and also I was evaluating entering new markets, and actually we entered a new market there. My responsibilities frequently took me to countries in Latin America where I collaborated closely with the local teams to strategize around potential opportunities. So you had to think about, okay, where are my key competitors? What are their capabilities? How we can beat them, etc. And then finally, this experience actually underscored for me the importance of strategic thinking. You analyze the market landscape, you had to understand the market dynamics, you had to understand the key competitors, the rationale behind the growth, and why you want to enter a market, why buy versus build, right? Things like that.
CFOs and controllers, does expense management feel like a necessary evil? It's time to switch to Brex. Brex automates and accelerates spend management with easy to use corporate cards, travel, expense management, and bill pay all on one AI powered platform. Brex makes it easy to boost efficiency and compliance enterprise wide and free up your managers, employees, and accounting team for higher impact work. Top companies from startups to enterprises are using Brex to automate manual work and transform their finance operations. We're talking DoorDash, Robinhood, Airtable, and countless other industry leaders. Ready to join them? Switch to AI-powered spend management at Brex.com. To what we refer to as our mentoring round, and it was only 6 months ago, but we're curious. When you first stepped into the role, is there something you wish someone had told you? In fact, you can go back now and tell yourself this. What would that be?
Yes. Quite frankly, it would be to be an essentialist, with a disciplined approach towards prioritizing fewer but more significant things, considering the key trade-offs. And what does this mean? Is try to pursue less but essential tasks, gracefully saying no to non-essentials. Why am I saying this? Because sometimes it's hard to say no, especially let's say if you're more junior and sometimes you're working with somebody that it's demanding. but you sometimes need to really prioritize and think about what are the things that will propel your career and that will actually propel the business as well. And I wish I could have had that more clear in my mind. But one book that really helped me to think about this more thoughtfully is called Essentialism: The Disciplined Pursuit of Less. And I really recommend everyone there to read this because it's very simple, very easy to read, and gives you the basic things that you should just keep in mind. And it's everyone says, yeah, you have to say no to some things, but how do you do it? How thoughtful you are, how structured you are in that regard. So I would say that's one of the things that I would have said to myself at the beginning of my career.
Nice. Is there? We always like to ask our guests to reflect a little on the personal side. We're wondering if there's something about you that most people might not know, something that your colleagues might not be aware of. Anything you can share with us?
Yeah, well, I did mention that one before about the sales.
Yeah, in
Many
Australia.
people don't know. Yeah, the Australia one, because many people don't know about that. When when I joined, I think it was also Prudential. One of my hiring managers, he was so surprised that I was doing that, and then also at Bestow, and then at Yuvo, the same people are like so puzzled. It's like why, like literally
What
why?
part of Australia then? And are you right around Sydney, driving around? What are you in the city taking? Mass transit? Don't know. What? How did you get around?
Yeah, I was living in Brisbane. Actually, I went to Sydney for some weeks just to travel around, and then I decided to live in Brisbane. I was there with a friend, and then we met other people there, literally right out of college. Right, you are adventurous. But I actually, you know what? The first job after college wasn't sales. Now that I think about it, I was cleaning dishes in a bar. No, it was a coffee bar. So waking up at 4:30 in the morning to go there and clean dishes at 5:30 until 9, and then while I was looking for another job, and then I found this sales job. But actually that was the first one, and probably not many people know about this now that I'm thinking about this. So I was waking up very early.
How long did you plan to stay? Was it something I'll do this for 12 months and return home, sort of? Yeah.
Exactly, because the visa is only a year. So I did it for a little bit less than a year. I was ready to go back at some point, and then after make some money, and then I went to travel through the Southeast Asia countries. Came back to Chile, and then started working at Microsoft. But yeah, probably that one. Not many people don't know that I started washing dishes in a coffee shop.
Well, yeah, you already shared a book selection for us. So I think we're up to our final question, which would be to have you look forward the next 12 months and share what your CFO priorities are. What would those be?
Absolutely. One of let's say I have three things in mind right now. A key priority is to motivate my colleagues and lead by example. And probably people may think, why is he saying something non-financial related, right? Because as a CFO, you are a leader, and sometimes you are just isolated or in a specific task, or crunching numbers. But I do strongly believe that the CFO can be more strategic and also more influential across the organization. Um, so I constantly have one-on-ones with different people across the organization, from product and engineering or operations, etc. Right? So I can listen to them, motivate them, and also just be available and be an open door, having an open door approach. I think that's very important. So the second one is cash runway, as I mentioned before. Cash runway extension strategies, handle cash burn, make sure that we as a startup, that you need to not only survive but also grow thoughtfully. So to me, that's also a key priority. And then the third one is, what's our plan as a startup to achieve profitability in the medium run, medium to long term, and that's also something that I am constantly thinking about. how we can be more efficient, how we can drive revenue and gain scale so we can be profitable.
Jorge, Stevenson, thank you for joining us on CFO Thought Leader.
Thank you very much for having me. This was fantastic.
Hello, listeners. As you may know, we recently passed the 1,000 episode milestone, and the fact is, we've published well over 1,000 episodes over the years, but we only prescribe a number to episodes featuring CFOs, because we know this is truly what has distinguished us over time. We're a platform dedicated to the people who actually occupy the CFO office. And to you, our listeners, who are very often seeking to better understand the roots of finance leadership. Well, it's with this in mind that we're pleased to announce the release of our new book titled The CFO 500, where we have profiled 500 of the more than 1,000 CFOs that have participated with us over the years. And you remember Siskel and Ebert, the movie guide? Leonard Moulton had his movie guide as well. Well, that's sort of the concept of what's inspired this volume, the CFO 500. Think of it as a reference volume where you can quickly thumb through the 500 one-page CFO profiles and cherry pick out the interviews that matter to you. How so? Well, each CFO page profile includes an individual QR code that allows you to instantly access the audio interview with the CFO that most intrigues you. Or maybe it's a particular industry. Just like that movie guide you used to reach to on a day when nothing much was going on, here's a way to quickly reference the interviews that matter most to you. The CFO 500 is now available for $29.95 and can only be purchased via CFOThoughtLeader.com. So visit us at CFOThoughtLeader.com. Thank you.